Council members, if you would, out of respect for a request, we'll go to item 122, receiving a date report from the Baton Rouge, up-to-date report from the Baton Rouge Chief of Police Murphy Paul and Mayor President Sharon Weston Broom regarding allegations surrounding the brave paid by Councilmember Dunn Jr.
Point of order.
Go ahead.
Point of order. Can we have someone from the parish attorney's office come up, please?
Come on, Andy.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Dodson, there are 2 matters pending. We've been personally named as a city, and I think the chief has been personally named in lawsuits in the Middle District of Louisiana, correct?
Oh, there's more than 2.
There's more than 2.
Mm-hmm.
Is it prudent to go forward with questioning and conversations and statements being made? I ask because I understand that statements in this arena can be used against someone in a court of law. In fact, I believe in one of the motions, there were 2 council members, in one of the petitions, there were 2 council members that were basically, I think one was Shauna Banks, and then one of them was unnamed. But one of their statements, they were used in the petition against us to prove the allegations asserted therein. So is it prudent to move forward with this in an open setting, and especially without an executive session attached?
My preference would be that we would not. However, to the extent it is the will of the council to still have this report, I think it could be done, but it would have to be a very truncated report with very limited information outside of us going into executive session, which is not noticed for, so we can't go into executive session this evening regarding this matter.
Okay, but I guess the most important piece is to understand that anything that is said
Correct.
today
I agree with
can
you.
be used against us in those lawsuits moving forward, correct?
I agree with you. I agree with you 100% on that, Councilwoman Rocker. As a matter of fact, in previous cases, we've had citations and motions and at trial regarding information that was provided at this council, statements made by council members, yes.
Are there criminal matters pending as well, sir?
I can't answer that because it's not within my jurisdiction. I don't know if we have any in city court or not. I had to ask Ms. Lawrence, but it's my understanding anything related to this there is some in district court, but I can't speak to whether they're pending or not.
What about a criminal investigation?
I can't. You have to ask the chief about that. I don't have any information about that, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Dunn.
The concerns that Councilwoman Rocker brought up were discussed with the parish attorney and the chief, and asked the chief to move forward with those concerns in mind, and he can give us an update without creating an issue for us in the court of law. And we have had reports where presenters have come before us and given updates of reports, and was able to give that report without jeopardizing the case, open case.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that, Councilman. Again, I just asked that there's certain information that shouldn't be divulged. We've talked with the chief. The chief understands that, and I'm sure he knows where to draw the line. But in all safeness, I do agree with Councilwoman Rocker. It may be safe not to do it. But again, to the extent it's the will to go forward, we'd ask that it be truncated. Yeah.
Understood.
We'll have the report first, then the public hearing, then comments from the council. Chief Paul.
Good evening, City Council. I'd like to provide a quick summary on where we're at as it relates to complaints that the Internal Affairs Division has received. To date, we are actively working 13 internal affairs investigations. 6 of those involve complaints of an improper strip search. 3 involve use of force. 2 involve being taken to the Narcotics Processing Center, and 2 of those involve missing money or jewelry. We initiated 4 criminal investigations. 3 of those are still ongoing. 1 was closed by way of an arrest, and the federal government still has their ongoing investigation as well. Thank you.
Is there anyone here wishing to speak on item 122? Anyone here wishing to speak on item 122? Please state your name and address for the record. Come on down to the mic.
Reverend Alexis Anderson, 248 Steel Boulevard. I have a couple of very concerning questions. One is that can we at least find out how many lawsuits there are? Can we find out whether or not the individuals that have been named in investigations at this point have been added to the Brady list? Can we find out what the status or get an update on how many additional agencies are also looking at these suits? And quite frankly, what additional law enforcement agencies are also now part of this process? I don't think any of those kind of questions would violate anything, but I think the taxpayers who are going to have to pay for this have a right to know the basics of what is going on in this parish, who's doing what the process is, and quite frankly, what are we already allocating in terms of dollars and cents to this cost? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak on the item? We do have those questions noted. Reverend Anderson, is there anyone else here wishing to speak on the item? Council members, Councilmember Dunn. Councilmember Dunn, and while he's coming, and if you got any of those questions, I would ask if you can respond to those, please be prepared to do so.
You ready for me?
Yeah.
Greg, if you could come and answer some of the questions that Reverend Anderson had, those that you could.
As far as the number of lawsuits, I'm counting them in my head. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact number. I think there's like either 4 to 5 that are intertwined with what's been characterized as the Brave Cave.
What about the agencies involved? Can you answer that?
Baton Rouge City Police and East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Office.
And the federal government?
As
I
parties,
think
I'm sorry,
her question, and
maybe I
to clarify,
misunderstood.
was it the targets of the investigation or the agencies that's conducting the investigation, Reverend Anderson?
Her question speaks to who's conducting the investigation.
It's who's conducting the investigation is what she wants.
I wouldn't know. I can't specifically say who's investigating.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
That's it, Councilmember Dunn?
Yes, thank you.
Any other comments, concerns, questions? Council members, we move now to item 121, receiving a report from the Parish Attorney's Office and the Office of the Mayor President of the ability to use public funds to address and remediate private property damage that results from actions of law enforcement officers in executing warrants, including damage caused by private property as a result of the Brave Cave-related arrests and detentions. The way the process will work, we're going to hear from the Parish Attorney first with the report, and then we'll go to comments from the audience.
Thank you, Council. I don't have a whole lot more to report. I got to talk to Councilman Dunn before the meeting. Since the last time this was brought up, we have paid one claim. I don't have the total amount. I know the lady was very satisfied. She had an attorney that we dealt with. There are a few lingering things that we're working on. There's another claim that I've committed to Councilman Dunn that I would meet with him outside of this meeting to see if there's a possibility to resolve it. But we haven't had a whole lot more claims come in since the last time it was on the agenda, if anybody has any other questions.
And Greg, if you will, can you just touch on the process for those who unfortunately may be going through this situation, who to contact, who to reach out to, what is the approval process, all that stuff?
Yes, sir. So if someone has a claim, they can reach out to our office directly. Sedgwick does our adjusting. Typically on a claim like that, Pat LaSalle, which most of you have met before, would adjust that claim. He typically reports back to me, and then it can probably be discussed between us and Mr. Dotson and Ms. Humphreys, and there's a decision made on whether the claim will be paid or not. And depending on the amount of the claim, determines if it has to go before claims review and then brought in front of y'all to approve. There is a level that our office has the ability to approve without bringing to the council, which is less than $10,000.
And your office, again, for those who are watching at home that may not know, and the contact number.
389-3114. And they can ask from me directly, Greg Roan.
The Office of?
Risk Management and Litigation.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. It's on the website.
Is there anyone here wishing to speak on item 121? Please state your name and address for the record.
Gino McLaughlin, good afternoon, everybody. Last time I was here, I did speak to this, and so I appreciate the opportunity to do that again. Appreciate Councilman Dunn and the others that plugged in on the issue. If you guys will remember the initial case coming out, the Jeremy Lee case, there was a home, entire front of the house gets ran into, missing for almost an entire year. I think I reminded you guys that there was a 7-month-old baby at the time that was living in that home. And so since that point, thankful to Mayor Broom, to obviously Councilman Dunn, to a host of other community organizations, Laramie Griffin, Amber Sherman, in our names network. I shouldn't have started naming all the names, but there were a host of community organizations that really did plug in to provide not just fix the facade, which is actually now completely fixed. That was done within 2 weeks, again, with Councilman Dunn's partnership and a host of private partners as well, but also those community partners that came in to make sure that those individuals were able to be made somewhat whole, right? My question would be, though, for Greg and for, I guess, on behalf of the individuals that have been impacted and presumably will be impacted going forward, how do we make sure that that information is raised up to a level to where people know how to navigate that process? And then two is, what is the timeline for adjudication on those sort of matters? That's something that I would, be interested. Just when people come to me, I can make sure that they understand how to submit a claim, but also how to have that mitigated as well. But again, thank you to all the individuals that did plug in. That does include the Mayor President, as well as Councilman Dunn and everybody else that did care about that family. The last thing I'll leave you with is this does happen far more often than we know. I've had some individuals since then, it's much older cases, but they had the same type of situation happen to them. And so we have to be very mindful of the type of responsibility that we place with our law enforcement. There's also equal responsibility to make sure that those families are made whole, because oftentimes that's done whether or not they're guilty or not, and they're often left to pay for those claims themselves. So thank you.
Next person up, please state your name and address for the record.
Ryan Thompson, attorney for Mr. Jeremy Lee and Ms. Turnell Brown. I reside here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. For security reasons, I will withhold my address given the sensitive nature of what it is that's going on. First off, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you to this body. Thank you to Councilman Cleve Dunn for putting this on the agenda today. According to the Brookings Institute, pathways to wealth for African Americans is intricately tied to homeownership. Homeownership in African American neighborhoods across America is valued at $48,000 less than white neighborhoods. Mayor Pro Tem, may I approach the body? I have pictures to provide. To exclude anyone, but if you could share. On April 6, 2023, in what we know is in the early morning hours, a paramilitary unit dressed in full military style gear, same with full face, surrounded a home. A battering ram was used to tear down this home unannounced. They threw an explosive unit inside of the house where a 7-year-old female was inside. As you can see, there is markings left on the first picture that shows this military grade style. The home was left in ruins. April 26, 2023, a military style unit forced its way into a home. Once inside, the unit kicked down the door of the master bedroom, busted open a safe inside of the bedroom. While everyone was detained, this unit had the keys to a truck. Instead of using those keys to the truck, they decided to break the windows out. Again, these homes and this truck was left in ruins. On May 23rd, 2023, a military-style unit batter-rammed the door down, pulled an African-American woman out of her home, barely clothed. Deputies subsequently broke the surveillance cameras at the home by pulling them down and trashed the home. Again, this happened leaving an African-American home in ruins. This may sound like Afghanistan. This may sound like the Gaza Strip. It is not. It is here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. This is happening to American citizens. So the question that we have to ask ourselves is, are we going to allow our tax dollars, our police units, East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Department, Baton Rouge Police Department, Zachary Police Department, to allow to continue to treat American citizens whose primary wealth building vehicle is their homes to be destroyed? Thank you, God.
Anyone else here wishing to speak on the item? We now go to council members. Council Member Hudson.
Mr. Rome, if you could come back up and just provide some clarity, because I
One
think...
second, Mr. Hudson. I didn't see the gentleman getting up to come and speak. Were you coming to speak, sir? Come on down. I apologize. State your name and address for the record.
How you doing?
Doing well.
My name is Craig Hall. I want to keep my address private for security reasons. But on April 18th, 2018, I live on a corner house home at Woodcock and Avenue J. At 4:45 a.m., we was brutally attacked with grenade-style bombs thrown into our home. At the time, I had a honor roll kid in a magnet program at Scholarville Magnet High School, taking 2 college courses, and a 14-year-old son who immediately crawled to me in the middle of the night with bombs going off outside our home for no reason to our knowledge whatsoever. So I dialed 911 for what I thought was an emergency. And I was told that the police was on the way and they was going to make contact with us to help us get out of our home. But to our dismay, nobody arrived. We were sitting inside there terrified, for 42 minutes, scared to speak with one another because we wasn't sure if anyone was walking around our home at the time. And so I dialed 911 again. It's kind of hard for me. And at that time, they had put 40 bullet holes in our home and shot my kid twice, and good with my military training that we was all able to get out of there alive. And, I'm just in front of you all because we've been reaching out everywhere for help. We was told to live in hotels because we was afraid, till we ran out of all our means and everything. So we hired an attorney, Ron Haley, pro bono, which I'm sure some people in the room is aware of. And he was telling us from day one, everything he told us was a lie. So, it's been many times we shared 1 pack of hot dogs to feed one another. I just don't want this to happen to no one. No one. I just can't imagine it happening to my worst enemy. And we are here actually screaming for help at this moment because we filed a complaint. It's just sitting there. No one is responding. Every door we go to is turned and slammed in our face, and we are told a bunch of untruths. So I'm here begging you all for help, or to help my sons, because they has changed their lives to help support us now. And, I just don't have nowhere else to turn.
Sir, did the police cause the damage to your home?
No, sir.
Okay.
I'm more than positive if they would have came, because I live 3 minutes from the police unit without the lights on. Mm-hmm. If they would have came within the time that I had called, my house would have never had been shot up over 40 times. So I'm more than positive with that. And I'm not here to point fingers and blame anything. I just don't know what victims are supposed to do in situations like this. That's what I'm here for.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Ms. Harris, speak with this gentleman, get all his information, please, Ms. Harris. Get all his information. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on the item?
Laramie Griffin, 2001 South Sheriff Forest Boulevard. First, I want to speak on forest property damage, your cars and extension of your home. And from what I've seen, as far as the lawsuits that come through these settlements, is always a police crash or something like that with the city that immediately gets paid. But when it comes to the housing, it's a question, it's a loophole that doesn't get handled, and that's a real problem for me. You know what I'm saying? That's by law, your cars and extension of your home, and those things should be paid, in the right time, so that family shouldn't be able to wait a year in order to get their home fixed with organizations and all the extra calls. It should have been handled immediately. As far as what we're dealing with in the community, it's still happening at a very high rate. Just a couple of weeks ago, a man called me up in the neighborhood I grew up in Glen Oaks, and he said the sheriffs just not pulled him over, but sequestered him to the side of the road, thought he was a suspect in a robbery, and pretty much beat him to where 3 of his teeth was knocked out. And it was just detrimental to him because he's just a man trying to live in the community, a community that I grew up in. And he tried to handle the situation himself and his family, but he was also met with the sheriffs not even a day later to sign a simple battery charge against a police officer when he didn't do anything, when he was handcuffed. So this is a constant problem with policing around in our community, not only with the Brave team, but what they've been doing the past few years, because people have been saying over and over again what's been going on, and now you see it with these lawsuits, how ugly it's been. And that's just a few instances. That's just a few. It's really, and in every district you can find someone who has dealt with them, who have seen them driving up and down the road, speeding, going through red lights. There's a situation where my sister had last year to where she saw Baton Rouge Police Department going up the wrong way on the airline highway, and she had to pull over before getting hit. So these policies in place as far as chasing and how they conduct themselves need to be looked at thoroughly. But I also want to say that I'm very happy about Cleve Dunn bringing this up. This is very important to us, to the community. But I ask you to employ yourself to ask your community what is going on and what could they really, really change without police, without any council, without any other people there to kind of take over a meeting. But ask them what do they need and what have they seen on a regular day besides what they deal with themselves in their community, but the people we pay. You know what I'm saying? It's just very hurtful, and they come in with military-style gear. They come with a high attitude, treating us like we're less than nothing. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely want this to be looked at and not be brushed to the side, as I believe it has been on many different levels, because we look at one person who was very charismatic at the top, and that's fine, but you have an entire community that has been trampled upon for far, far too long. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak on the item? Councilmember Hudson.
Mr. Rome, if you would, come back up. I just want to get some clarity, because I think the last time that we had this item, we were advised that in most instances where there is found to be legitimate criminal activity, we cannot pay these claims. Is that still accurate, or what are we looking at here?
That statute's still active. It's our immunity statute. And the claim I was talking about with Councilman Dunn was I don't think we were correct in that situation. We had some bad intel, and we paid that lady's property damage. She's satisfied. But no, you're right. Typically, when we're correct and we're at the right place, we have immunity from that, and that statute is still in effect.
Okay. And then just to clarify, if your office does receive a call, although we can't necessarily pay a claim, do you all still connect them with the mayor's office to see if there's housing programs that they can look into or something like that?
The short answer to that is no. Basically, what my office does, we investigate that claim, and there's a decision made whether to pay or not to pay. And that's basically where we leave it.
Well, I'll just leave that as a recommendation. Look, I understand. Look, there's families out there that are impacted on the criminal's side, right? Where their family member may have been guilty of a crime, so they're not eligible to file a claim, but they're still negative. They're a victim of the crime as well, even though that's their family member. And so at least connecting them with those resources, having that as a policy, may be a positive thing, maybe something for us to look at. So just a recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hurst.
All right, so Councilmember Dunn and I brought a similar item up earlier this year. One of our biggest, and it was Zion City. So I want to thank Councilman Dunn. One thing we don't mind, we step in each other's territories all the time, just out of respect based on relationships. And I want to thank Gino and everybody else who chipped in to make sure that this house is restored. Simultaneously, I was taking a different approach to restore the same house. I wanted to hold the city accountable to repair the home. So, because here's the deal, they spent about $12,000 to $15,000 on one home, which is extremely commendable. But that can't happen for 10 houses a year. I have 3 houses at the same time. We had, so crazy, I called Andy and I said, hey Andy, I have an issue in my community where a home was kicked in, but it's not actually the current address, but it was a previous address for someone who was considered to be a suspect, which I talked to y'all about, and he said as long as it was on the license, he lived there, but the police thought that he was at that residence, they can kick the door in, right? Pull the whole front off the house. It wasn't this, it was another one. Then he had the same incident the Friday before, so Andy thought it was the same incident. Now, in this case, it was a previous address. So how does that play into this? Because here's the deal. I know you as an attorney. You have kids?
Yes, sir.
Do you know everything a kid does? Every single thing?
I don't know everything my children do.
No matter how good you raise them, right?
Yes, sir.
So if they come and pull the door off your house, somebody's going to have hell to pay. You're going to take your law degree, your great critical thinking mind, and you're going to figure out how to solve that problem. And so while no state statute supersedes and gives us the ability, I'm going to say this publicly for everybody. Half the time, city parish officials know we need to pay these damn claims. But they're so worried about if we let one fly by, then we have to pay $1 million. What is that going to look like in terms of liability for the city? I really don't care. So we have OCD money that is there to fix blighted and dilapidated homes. And that's what my fight was with city parish, because we just announced $2.5 million to fix houses, and we only asked for what, 12, 15,000? So we shouldn't have to go to private donors. That should be an immediate pool that anybody in this case can go to. And I want to make sure I say that on public record, because that's what those funds are for. And that's not an admission of guilt. What it's doing is helping somebody who needs help with their homes. So I'm going to challenge city parish and anybody who has, because let me tell y'all this, 3 of these homes became blighted in the same community. Then they became condemned. And now you have people who cannot fix the condemned homes because they can't afford it. A lot of them are on fixed income, or in that case, the mother just passed from COVID. So you got, what, a 17 and 19-year-old, I think I'm saying that right, who in a home don't have the means to take care of themselves, let alone fix the front of their homes. So this would not happen across Florida Boulevard without some type of reconciliation. So what I'm going to challenge you to do is figure out not what loophole, but what allowances we have from a risk management standpoint to do our due diligence as a city to make these people whole. So as much as you focus on how not to fix them, because I'm going to tell you, the lawyer's job is to make sure city parish does not pay. Let me be very clear. Okay? We also need to figure out when we know morally that we are out of compliance. I don't care what the law says when it comes to that, because sometimes that's why the laws can be changed, right? Unfortunately, we can't change state law. Figure out what positions we are as a city parish, or what position we can be put in the city parish through OCD and other community development dollars that we get to rectify these wrongs and make sure that these houses are whole again. Because let me tell you what does not happen. The minute you can have the biggest insurance policy in the world, the minute the police said that they had just cause to break your door down, your insurance will not pay for that repair. So I'm not talking about for the people that don't have insurance, I'm talking about for the people that do as well. So we need to figure out what controls we have as a city parish, which we do all the time, not to circumvent, but what allows local municipalities to take authority in these situations. And I'm going to challenge you to do that and then come back and give a council report. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Dunn.
Thank you. Dwight brought up, Councilman Hudson brought up some good points. And I do understand that there are situations where damage may be justifiable. In a hostage situation, or somebody's, running into a home, understand police pursuit may cause some damages. In the situations that we brought up, and many of them that we hear of that happens in the community, there are alternative situations that could have taken place on the ground. This Cadillac Street property had two entrances. One of the entrances was locked with a burglar bars, the other entrance was not. And people on the ground shared that with officers on the ground that, hey, the side door is open, you don't have to tear the front door off. Where they decided to tear the whole front door off and tow the wall off. The other situation in Park Forest, no one was home. I understand they breached the home, but when they got in the home, they still threw flashbangs throughout the home. They still broke out every window in the home, external window. So in situations like that, we feel like that's excessive and shouldn't happen. So when it's not justifiable, we think the city should step in and take care of those claims. I agree with Councilman Hurst that we shouldn't have to resort to private money to do that. And before I forget, I want to thank Blake and his team and the staff over there, because they responded in a very fast manner to help the construction team to do what they need to do from a permitted standpoint and inspection. So I want to thank Blake and them for that. I think it's twofold, Dr. White. I think we do need to look at policy in situations like that and maybe make some adjustments. But also, too, just some compassion by the officers on the ground. Just compassion for people. We don't even have to get to a point of litigation when there are alternative routes to handle some of these situations. And that could be done through training, that could be through conversations and things of that nature, but just some compassion for people. I think we won't have a lot of these situations. And the final thing I want to do before I give Councilman Hurst some of my time is just want to uplift the process, like Gino mentioned, and make sure that people are aware. And Gino, what we'll do, me and my office, we'll work with the parish attorney and the claims department to try to put some type of flyer together, a pamphlet that we can get out digitally and pass out. Somebody mentioned, I don't know if it was somebody on the council or somebody external mentioned, that some agencies actually on the ground when damages happen, they give a card to residents or citizens to let them know how to follow up on the ground when damages happen. So maybe that's something that we could look at. And I'll reserve the rest of my time for Councilman Hurst.
I just want to make one comment as it related to the specific home in Zion City or in Fortune Addition. The young lady, the sister that was in the home, she told the police, please don't tear my house down, here are the keys. As a matter of fact, the side door is open, but I can give you the keys to the front door. So this is, at the end of the day, there was no need to go into that particular home and tear it down because the homeowners were willing to give everything they had to salvage the last thing that their mother left them before she left this earth. So a lot of times there are facts that are not stated in specific conversations about liability, again, because once the city gets a judgment, it's something that you can use in court. So I want to let y'all know publicly some of the challenges that we don't want the judgment because we don't want y'all to use that in future litigation. So if it was up to me, I say take all of it to trial. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Coleman.
Yes, sir. Just want to be brief here. Councilman Dunn, thank you for grabbing the baton and going when there was a lot of talk about what should happen, need to happen, showboating about what had happened. So appreciate that. Also, I want to make sure that we understand, that everybody understand that as council persons, and I know I can speak for myself, that's part of my job, and that is to let constituents know about the services that are out there. And so to go and, like we can line out folk to do our job, I don't see that. And along those lines, Blake, I want to thank you and your group, because when there are situations, I know in 10, and also Marley, when there are situations in 10, that's what we do, is reach out in order to get the services to the people. And so we must be aware of knowing the different entities out here that can truly serve our constituents and then reach out to them. And that's why we have staff in our offices to assist with this.
Councilmember Banks.
How police reports are, the parts of a police report, I had a specific question. Is there an officer or regarding police reports? No police in the house? Okay. Myron,
Chief Daniels is coming.
thank you. So my Deputy Chief Myron Daniels, so doing the police report, is there a portion whereas you may have to indicate, all right, what the method by which you had to enter, if it was excessive force, if you had to break down a door, and then justification, is that part of the report? And if not, is that something that would assist in the double accountability?
Okay, so Councilwoman, to answer your question, yes. There is mention in all of those reports for officers to enter by breaching a door in any manner, they have to have a warrant that's signed by the judge. So that is part of the checks and balances that goes into that process as well.
So the examples and situations we've heard today, they did not have a warrant, a judge's warrant. I don't know if that's messing up anything legal, but
No, I don't. I don't want to guess. If I can look
Okay.
at the cases, I can tell you. But speaking on it, 99 times out of 100, there is a warrant that is usually signed by a judge.
okay. So in these situations, it's hard for me to kind of get to it because if it's that common, is there? For instance, the example where the young lady offered the key to the house and said a side door was open, what would be a way to justify as part of a report? If they just left that part out, or I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out how do we tighten the accountability part. Are there pictures? Do you all require pictures of the home once they go in? Is that part of the evidence?
Yes. So usually the damage associated with executing a warrant is documented through photos as well as written reports. So, but staying specific to these cases,
Sure.
I'm not sure as to the why, because there are a lot of tactical decisions that are made on why they choose one door versus another, or I can't speak on it.
Okay, because I'm trying to figure out before we can even get to a place where a claim is filed. I'm trying to figure out where from the police point of view, is somebody like looking at the pictures, looking at the dynamics, looking at the report, and asking questions as to why was a certain method used? Because otherwise, people really won't have any defense. And, it's supposed to be a presumption of innocent until proven guilty. So I would only imagine that when we're not, even if someone is in a home where a relative or whatever is the person that the police are pursuing, they're still innocent, and that guilty charge is sometime could be even a year away. But then you have 12 months of an inhabited home. So how do we? I'm just trying to figure out how do we work that out. You might not know this, but those are the kind of gaps that need to be addressed. Even Mr. Attorney Rome, maybe you can answer, but there's a timeline.
I think I am crossing, that question crosses over into
Yeah.
Mr. Rome's
So-
expertise and not so much the police department.
Yeah, so,
what's your
and I
question,
guess I'm trying to say that if they have a report
Yes, ma'am.
and the report shows all this damage, how are we going to transition from justifying what the officer said in the report that is written that day to you doing a claims investigation?
So, and I hope this answers your question. Typically, what would happen is somebody would file a claim based on what you just described. Our adjuster would get that report from the police and use that in his evaluation of the claim. Does that answer your question?
And it does, but at some point, where would it come up that the officers use unnecessary tactics? Because if they did, that's where the decision, I would assume, regarding whether or not to pay the claim, possibly. But there's nothing there.
To be honest, I hadn't seen a claim like that. I'm not saying one never existed, but I haven't seen one, and Mr. LaSalle's never brought it to my attention that, hey, maybe we need to relook at this. Maybe they used too much force here.
Right.
And
that's what I'm saying there.
I know, I
Yeah.
understand where you're going. I hadn't personally seen that.
Sure, of course
I'm not
not.
saying it hasn't ever occurd.
Yeah, and I doubt if it has ever occurred. But in that we are now dealing and talking about, first of all, we want our persons to know they have a right to file a claim.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I think in the past, they probably did not believe that.
I think the information wasn't out there good. I
Right.
can admit to that.
And so we have that, and then we have officers who probably never hear one way or the other that they used excessive force and that it costs not only the person, but now the city. And so if there's never some kind of merge in training and culpability, where it's not the burden of the proof on the homeowner, then we kind of going around in circles. Because the adjuster is not thinking about, did the officer use unnecessary force? The officer is not thinking about, oh, this is going to cost the city money. And we left with a homeowner or a resident who's holding the entire bag and responsibility. And and my question today is, in fixing all this, we have to have policy that addresses those two defining moments.
Yes, ma'am.
And I don't know, where do we go from there to do that, Councilman Dunn? So, that's it.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the take-home message: file your claim in the event that you find yourself in this particular situation. And want to thank Gino, Ryan, and Cleve for jumping on top of that situation and making sure the family had some restitution, as Shannon Sharp would say.